The proposal from the stars. Jared lived a quiet life on a small human colony far from Earth. He worked as an engineer, fixing mining machines and power lines. His life was simple and lonely. He had no family, no close friends. People respected him but never stayed close. Jared didn't mind. He liked silence. It was better than being heard. One night, everything changed. Jared was sitting alone, drinking tea, when a strange message came through his communication device. It wasn't from Earth. It was from a place called Larethia, a faraway alien empire. The message was short and clear. It said, "We offer you marriage with one of our noble daughters. Accept, and you will be honored. Decline, and you may continue your small life." At first, Jared laughed. Was this a joke? But then he read it again. The seal on the message was real. It had the Larethian royal mark. The government of Earth was involved. They needed a human male for this marriage to form peace with Larethia. A political deal. A marriage with no love, just duty. The strangest part? Jared wasn't the first choice. Several other men had said no. Some were afraid. Others demanded to see the bride first. But the Larethians refused. No one was allowed to see her face before the wedding night. Why me? Jared asked. Out loud. He didn't think he was special. He was just a man who fixed things. But maybe that was exactly why they chose him. He had no ties. No one to miss him if he left. No one to ask questions. Jared sat in silence for hours. He thought about Earth, about his small room, about the long lonely nights. What would really change if he left? Would he miss anything? Then he looked at the final line in the message. If accepted, prepare to leave in 3 days. 3 days to leave his entire life behind. Jared accepted. People on the colony were shocked. His co-workers thought he was crazy. You don't even know what she looks like, they said. What if she's a monster? What if it's a trap? Jared didn't answer them. Deep inside, he didn't care about beauty. He didn't care about titles or fear. He wanted to do something different, something that mattered, even if it was strange. He was tired of feeling like a ghost. When the ship came for him, it was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, dark, and silent. The doors opened by themselves. No one stepped out. Jared took a deep breath and walked in. Inside the ship, the walls glowed softly. Everything smelled clean, almost too clean. An AI voice guided him to a room. You will rest here. The journey is long. Do not try to leave. He asked if he could speak to his bride. The voice replied, She will speak to you once. Later that night, he heard her voice. It was deep but soft. Strange but calm. She said her name was Saria. She didn't say much, only that this marriage was her duty. Then she said something that stayed with him. I do not ask you to love me, only to respect the bond. Jared replied, I won't promise anything fake, but I won't break the bond either. There was silence. Then she said quietly, That is enough. For the rest of the journey, Jared was alone. He was not allowed to see the crew. Meals appeared in his room like magic. He saw stars from his window, galaxies he had only read about. And still, no one told him what Saria looked like. He started to imagine. Was she tall? Was she covered in scales? Did she have eyes like fire or skin like stone? But no matter what he thought, he reminded himself it didn't matter. She had already told him not to love her, and he had already decided not to walk away. When the ship finally landed on Larethia, the door opened with a hiss. Bright blue skies, strange trees, and tall alien buildings greeted him. The air was thick and warm. He was taken to a royal palace made of silver stone. Many Larethians walked past him, but none met his eyes. They all looked down or away, as if ashamed or afraid. That night, he was told the wedding would happen the next day. Still, no one showed him her face. Not even a picture. Not even a shadow dot as he lay in bed, staring at the high ceiling. Jared asked himself one last time, what if she really is a monster? Then he smiled to himself. So what if she is? Jared didn't marry for looks. He married for something else. Something he couldn't name yet. But it was stronger than fear, and so, on the eve of the most important day of his life, Jared closed his eyes without regret, because he knew whatever waited behind that wedding veil, he was ready. Asterisk. The journey to the unknown, the day of departure, was quiet, but Jared felt the weight of the universe on his shoulders. He had said goodbye to no one because no one had cared enough to stop him. That was the strange freedom of being forgotten. No one noticed when you left. The ship that carried him from Earth to Larethia was smooth and silent, but what disturbed Jared the most was how empty it felt. It wasn't truly empty, of course. There were guards, pilots, and staff, but none of them showed their faces. All he ever heard was the ship's AI, and the soft hum of systems too advanced for any human to understand. Jared wasn't afraid, but the silence made his thoughts louder. Every hour, a new question echoed in his mind. What if I made a mistake? What if she's not just strange but dangerous? What if this is a trap? But then came a voice. It wasn't the AI. Jared, can you hear me? It was her. Soraya, the alien woman he had agreed to marry without ever seeing her. Her voice had changed. It still had that strange alien tone, but now there was something else, an edge of hesitation. As if she, too, didn't know what to expect from him. I want to be clear, she said. You were not my choice. Jared didn't flinch. No, I wasn't anyone's first choice. There was silence again. Then Soraya said something unexpected. I was once a leader, a warrior. But now I am considered ... broken. This marriage is their way of pushing me away. They think I'll disappear if they bind me to someone from a weaker species. Jared raised his eyebrows. It wasn't anger in her voice. It was pain hidden behind pride. They want to bury me in shame, she said. And I wonder if you will feel the same when you see me. Jared leaned closer to the communicator. I didn't marry your body. I married your fate. Her breathing paused for a moment. Then she simply said, You're a strange human. After that, they didn't speak much. But those few words stuck with Jared. This wasn't just a marriage of two people. It was the joining of two broken souls, both thrown aside by their own kind. Days passed. The stars outside changed. Jared studied them through the small window in his room. He traced constellations he didn't know the names of. Time stretched. He stopped counting hours. Meals came and went like clockwork. No footsteps. No voices. Just silence and stars. One night, the ship passed through something called the Veil Zone, a mysterious region filled with swirling energy clouds. Jared stared in awe as purple and green lights moved outside like dancing fire. It was beautiful and terrifying. During that time, the AI warned all communication would be lost. That night, he had a dream. He dreamed of a woman standing in the fire. Her eyes were glowing. Her skin looked like polished stone, but her tears were real. In the dream, she was holding out her hand, and he took it without fear. When Jared woke, he didn't know if the dream came from his mind or something else. A few days later, the ship began to slow down. We are approaching Larethian space. The AI announced, Prepare for atmosphere entry. Jared stood by the window as a great blue and gold planet filled the view. Larethia, her home. His future ... As they entered the planet's orbit, Jared saw massive floating cities, glowing rivers, and forests unlike anything on Earth. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel welcoming. It felt like a world that judged from afar. Once they landed, Jared was met by two tall figures in armor. Their faces were hidden behind masks. One of them handed him a silver box. "Wear this. It marks you as bonded. You will not be harmed." The box held a robe dark with golden lines and a small ring with moving symbols. Jared followed them through tall silver halls. Everything was too quiet, too cold. He felt like a stranger in a museum. They brought him to a private room in the Famfinena royal palace. There, he would wait for the ceremony. Still, no one showed him her face, not even a glimpse. The staff refused to answer any questions. When he asked about Soraya, they simply said, "You will meet her after the binding." Jared sat on the edge of the bed, holding the strange ring. It felt heavier than it looked. He whispered to himself, "I cross stars to meet a woman I've never seen. And yet, I'm not afraid." But deep inside, something else was growing. Not fear, but curiosity. He wanted to know what they were. All hiding. Why so much silence? Why so much shame? He was about to marry someone the galaxy wanted to forget. But maybe, just maybe, she was the only one who would remember him, and that was enough. Asterisk, the wedding of shadows. The wedding day arrived with no music, no cheers, and no smiles. Jared was dressed in royal robes, but no one looked at him as he walked through the long, glowing halls of the Larethian palace. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He felt like a man walking into history or into a trap. He didn't know which. The hall where the ceremony would take place was massive, with walls carved from shining crystal. The light changed color as it passed through them, casting soft blues and purples across the floor. Rows of alien nobles stood on both sides, tall and still. They stared ahead, never meeting Jared's eyes. No one welcomed him. No one whispered, "Greetings." It was as if they were waiting to see something fail. At the far end of the hall stood the High Elder, dressed in dark robes and holding a staff made of glowing bone. Next to him stood a figure fully covered in thick silver cloth from head to toe. That figure did not move, did not shift, did not even turn to look at Jared. He knew it was her Soraya. Jared stopped at the marked spot in front of the elder. He could feel the weight of every eye in the room. And yet, none of it mattered. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked at the veiled woman beside him. The High Elder raised his voice. "Do you, Jared of Earth, accept the binding of honor and duty to Soraya of House Zareth in spirit and in name?" Jared didn't blink. "I do." The Elder turned to Soraya. "Do you, Soraya of House Zareth, accept the same binding without protest?" A pause. The silence stretched longer than expected. For a moment, Jared thought she might walk away. Then, finally, a soft voice came from under the veil. "I do." The elder stepped forward. He touched both their foreheads with the glowing staff. The crystal in the room flashed once and then dimmed. "It is done," he said, but there was no applause. No smiles, just cold silence. Jared and Soraya were led to a separate chamber, one meant only for the bonded pair. No one followed them. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud. The air inside was warm, but thick with tension. Jared stood still, unsure of what would happen next. Soraya turned her back to him. Slowly she raised her arms and began to pull the veil away. What Jared saw next would have made most men step back. Her skin was rough like metal, dark silver with glowing blue patterns. Her shoulders were wide, marked with old battle scars. Her eyes were bright gold with slitted pupils like a dragon's. Her hair was braided black wires, thick and strange. Her arms were long and powerful. She was not beautiful in the way humans understood beauty. She was something different, something sharp, dangerous, and sad. Soraya turned around and looked directly at him. "You may speak now," she said. Jared didn't speak. He simply stared, not with fear, but with curiosity. "Are you not shocked?" she asked. "I've never seen anything like you," he said softly. "But I'm not here to judge you." She blinked. "You don't fear me?" Jared shook his head. "No. Should I?" She looked away. "You are the first male human or Larethian not to flinch." Jared stepped closer. "You said they gave you to me to hide you. Why?" Soraya sat down on a low bench. Her voice lowered. "I led soldiers once. I protected my people. But then I lost a battle. I was wounded and shamed. Our people do not forgive scars, not the ones on the body or in honor. They sent me away. This marriage was meant to remove me from sight without killing me." Jared sat beside her. "So they think I'm weak enough to be forgotten with you." She looked at him. "Exactly." Jared smiled for the first time that day. "Then maybe they've made a mistake." For the first time since he arrived, Soraya's eyes softened. She reached out a hand, rough and strong. Jared took it without fear. "I will not ask for your love," she whispered, "but I will not stop you if it grows." Jared squeezed her hand gently. "Then let it grow where it wants." "I have no regrets." That night, they sat together in silence. No kiss, no rush. Just two people bound by fate, both thrown away by their own kind, now learning how to see each other, not with fear, but with hope. And outside their chamber, the palace remained silent, but in that quiet space, something powerful had begun. Asterisk secrets. Behind her scars, Jared woke early, but Soraya was already awake. She stood near the window, her back to him, watching the sky. Her tall form looked like a statue, motionless and quiet. The light from the twin suns made the scars on her back shine. Some were deep. Some looked like they had burned through armor. Jared didn't say anything. He just watched for a moment, trying to understand what kind of life had left marks like that. "I know you're looking," she said, her voice calm. "It's fine. Most people stare before they turn away." "I'm not turning away," Jared answered. Soraya turned slightly, just enough for him to see her face. "Then you're different. Even some of my own soldiers couldn't look at me after the war." Jared stood up and walked closer, careful not to move too fast. He didn't want to scare her, even though she didn't look like the kind who's scared easily. "Who did this to you?" he asked gently. She raised her hand and traced one of the scars on her shoulder. "The Rinnoc Wars. I was a commander. I led the 3rd Outer Guard. We were ambushed. I didn't run. I stayed and fought, even when I knew no one was coming to help." Jared sat beside her. "You survived." "I didn't just survive," she said with a bitter laugh. "I won. I drove them back. But the council didn't care. They only saw that I was broken, not beautiful, not perfect anymore." Her eyes darkened. In Larethian culture, noble females are expected to be symbols of pride, grace, power, beauty. I had power. But after the war, they said I had none of the rest. "So they arranged this marriage," Jared said slowly. "To throw you away quietly," Soraya nodded. "Yes, an outcast with a human husband. They thought it was the perfect ending to my shame. But I'm not ashamed," Jared said. "They don't know me. I'm not here because I'm desperate. I said yes because I had nothing holding me back and I saw no reason to say no." Soraya looked at him for a long time. Her eyes didn't blink, and Jared could feel the weight of her thoughts. "I don't understand you," she finally said. "You don't need to," he replied. "You just need to know that I'm not going anywhere." That night, they spoke for hours. Jared shared pieces of his own life, how his parents were gone, how people ignored him on Earth, how he worked hard but was always treated like a machine. Soraya listened in silence. She didn't interrupt, didn't question, just listened. And when he finished, she said something that surprised him. You and I are not so different." Jared raised an eyebrow. "You're a war hero." "I fix broken wires." Soraya tilted her head. "We both fix things. We both survived being forgotten." For the first time, Jared laughed. "I never thought of it that way." The next few days changed something between them. Jared was allowed to walk in the royal garden with Soraya by his side. The guards didn't speak to them. The nobles kept their distance. But Soraya walked tall, no longer hiding behind a veil. And Jared didn't care what anyone thought. They talked about small things, alien plants, strange stars, food that glowed. They even laughed once when Jared tried to eat something bitter and turned pale. Soraya had never laughed like that before. She told him it had been years since anyone made her smile. One night, as they sat by a quiet pool reflecting the twin moons, Soraya asked him a question. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you said no?" Jared didn't answer right away. He watched the water, the soft ripples. Then he said, "Yes, I think I would still be alone. Safe, but empty." "And now?" Jared looked at her. "Now I don't feel empty anymore." Soraya turned away, but not before he saw the light in her golden eyes. That night, they didn't sleep far apart. For the first time, Jared reached for her hand without hesitation. And this time, Soraya didn't pull away. Behind every scar was a story. And Jared was ready to listen to all of them, one by one. Asterisk, the first time they fought together, the days passed slowly, but something was changing. The cold distance between Jared and Soraya was gone. She began to trust him. She let him walk beside her without guards. She spoke to him without looking over her shoulder. She even smiled when no one else was watching. Still, Jared knew not. Everyone was happy about their union. Whispers followed them wherever they went. Some nobles called it a fake marriage. Others said it was a punishment in disguise. Jared didn't care. He had faced silence all his life. This was no different. But Soraya had lived with pride. The whispers were like knives to her. One evening, they were invited, more like ordered, to attend a royal gathering. The council wanted to observe their behavior as a couple. Jared could feel the tension in Soraya's body. She didn't like being on display, especially not like this. The hall was full of powerful aliens, dressed in golden robes and long flowing armor. As Jared walked in with Soraya, the crowd grew quiet. All eyes turned toward them. Some narrowed in disgust. Others watched with curiosity. Jared held his head high and offered his arm to Soraya. She took it. The elder council began with speeches. Long, boring, and full of hidden insults. One voice called their marriage a union between weakness and disgrace. Jared's jaw tightened, but Soraya squeezed his hand. "Not here," she whispered. But then something unexpected happened. The lights flickered. A deep alarm rang out. Everyone froze. Guards rushed to the walls. The air filled with tension. A sharp voice echoed through the room. "Rebel forces have breached the outer dome. Multiple hostiles inbound." The nobles panicked. Some ran. Some shouted. Jared looked at Soraya. Her eyes had changed. The soft gold was now burning fire. She grabbed a guard's dropped weapon and turned to Jared. "Stay behind me," she said. "No," Jared answered. Before she could argue, an explosion rocked the hall. The doors burst open. Armed rebels stormed in tall, masked and fast. They pointed their weapons at the crowd. One of them shouted, "End the shame! Destroy the traitor queen and her human toy." Soraya didn't wait. She moved like lightning, her battle instincts returning. She knocked 2 rebels to the ground within seconds. Her body twisted with grace and strength. But there were too many. Jared saw a rebel aiming straight at her back. He didn't think. He moved. Grabbing a broken metal pole, Jared ran straight into the line of fire. He slammed into the rebel, knocking him off balance. Another turned and fired. Jared rolled behind a pillar. The blast just missed him. Soraya turned and saw him fighting. Her face changed. She had expected fear, running, but not this. Not courage. With a roar, Soraya tore through the attackers. She fought with brutal speed, protecting Jared's side as if he were one of her soldiers. The council guards slowly regained control. The rebels were pushed back and captured. Silence returned to the room, but it was not the same. Jared stood, breathing hard, bruised and sweating. Soraya walked to him, eyes wide. "You could have died," she whispered. "But you could have too," he replied. She stared at him. Her hand reached out and touched the cut on his cheek. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The next day, everything changed. The story spread across the palace. The human didn't run. The human fought beside her. Some called him brave. Others called him foolish. But no one called him weak anymore. Soraya was summoned before the council. They asked, "Why did he fight?" She replied, "Because he's my husband." Jared was called next. They asked, "What made you protect her?" He replied, "Because I saw someone worth protecting." And just like that, the council grew quiet. They had tried to break her spirit by marrying her to a human. Instead, they saw a bond form that no royal matchmaker could have planned. Not for power. Not for politics, but for something real. Later that night, Soraya and Jared sat together under the stars. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Soraya turned to him and said, "I fought many battles, but no one has ever fought beside me like you did." Jared smiled, his voice low. "Maybe it's time someone did." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. For the first time in years, Soraya didn't feel alone on the battlefield. And neither did Jared. Acceptance is not always given the next morning. The palace looked the same, but something had shifted. The guards now bowed their heads slightly when Jared passed. The nobles no longer whispered loudly in front of Soraya. Some even nodded as if unsure whether to show fear or respect. The battle had changed everything, for everyone. But the council was not ready to accept a human so easily. 3 days after the attack, Soraya was summoned to the high chamber. Jared walked beside her, but the guards blocked his path. "Only she may enter," they said. Soraya looked at Jared. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a storm. "Wait for me," she whispered. She returned hours later. Her expression was unreadable. Jared stood as she entered their chamber. "What did they say?" he asked. She sat down slowly. "They said you must prove yourself." Jared blinked. "I thought I already did." Soraya looked down. "They say you fought well, yes. But anyone can act brave in the heat of the moment. They want something more, something old. A tradition, a trial." Jared listened carefully. Soraya continued, "There is an ancient Larethian test. It is called the Trial of Fire. It was once used to test warriors. No human has ever attempted it. It is dangerous, painful. If you succeed, the council will have no choice but to accept you fully as my bondmate. If you fail..." Her voice trailed off. Jared didn't need to hear the rest. He stood. "Tell them I'll do it." Soraya's eyes widened. "You don't even know what it is." "I don't need to," Jared said. "I didn't come this far to stop now." The next day, the entire palace gathered in the ancient arena. It was carved from black stone, surrounded by glowing firewalls. In the center was a long path lined with strange, living creatures, each one a test of mind, heart, and body. Jared stood at the gate, dressed in nothing but simple armor. Soraya stood behind him. "This isn't just about pain," she warned. "It's about control, truth, honor. The trial breaks liars. It humbles the proud. It destroys those who fake courage." Jared nodded. Good. I'm not faking anything. The gate opened. He stepped into the arena. The first challenge was mental. A strange alien creature crawled forward. It released a mist that caused hallucinations. Jared suddenly found himself standing back on Earth, alone in his cold room, surrounded by voices of the past people who called him useless, invisible, weak. He shut his eyes. He spoke the words Soraya once said, "You survived being forgotten." The mist cleared. The second challenge was physical. A spiked wall shifted, closing in on him. He had to climb through narrow spaces, dodge burning ropes, and carry a heavy stone across the line. His legs shook, his arms bled. But he remembered the day Soraya stood alone in front of the rebels. If she could stand through that, he could do this. The third and final challenge was emotional. A creature shaped like fire walked up to him. It spoke in his mind. "You don't belong here. Go back. Let her go." "You're just a human," Jared laughed. "Yes, I'm just a human. That's why I won't give up." The creature roared, but disappeared. The firewalls dropped. Jared stood alone at the center of the arena. The arena was silent. Then the High Elder rose from his seat. For the first time, he spoke Jared's name with respect. "Jared of Earth, you have passed the trial of fire. The bond is honored." The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. The silence said everything. Soraya rushed to him. She touched his face wet with sweat, cut with bruise, and smiled. "I never thought you would make it," she whispered. Jared looked at her, his voice soft. "I didn't come here to win them. I came to stand beside you." That night, the palace felt warmer. Some still stared, some still doubted, but none could deny that Jared had walked through the fire not as a symbol, but as a man who chose love no matter the cost. And for Soraya, no victory on the battlefield had ever felt like this, because this time she didn't win alone. A new kind of love. The days after the trial were quiet, but they were not empty. Jared no longer walked as a stranger. The guards stepped aside for him. The nobles no longer turned their backs. Some even greeted him with short nods or curious glances. The title outsider no longer followed him. He was now known by a different name, the Flamewalker, the human who survived what no alien ever thought he could. But Jared didn't care about titles. He cared about the way Soraya looked at him now. Not with caution, not with walls, but with calm and trust. Her steps were lighter, her voice softer. She still carried her scars, but she no longer tried to hide them. Jared had seen her in her most broken form and stayed. One evening, they sat in the palace garden under the twin moons. The soft wind moved through the glowing trees. Soraya was silent for a long time. Then she spoke. "I spent years building armor of my heart," she said. "I told myself I didn't need love. That strength was enough." Jared listened. "And yet," she continued, "you, a man who had no sword, no army, broke through it. Not with force, but with kindness." Jared smiled a little. "Maybe kindness is stronger than armor." Soraya shook her head. "No, it's rarer. They didn't need grand words. Silence spoke for them. In that silence, their bond grew stronger than any royal promise. The council soon called them again, not with threats, but with an offer. They wanted Soraya to return to her old post as a military leader. With Jared beside her, they believed she could rebuild the Larethian defense with new ideas, human ideas. She would not be hidden anymore. She would be honored. But this time, it was her choice. Soraya said yes, but she didn't return as the old warrior. She returned as something more: wife, leader, survivor, and partner. Jared stood beside her as her equal, not her shadow. He was no fighter in the traditional sense, but his ideas changed how the guards trained. His logic and human thinking added New strength to an ancient system. Together, they built something better. News of their story spread beyond the palace. Across colonies and empires, people whispered about the human who married the forgotten warrior. Some laughed at first. But then came the facts, the trial, the attack, the silence that turned into respect. Back on Earth, Jared's name appeared. In news channels, some called him foolish. Others called him brave. But only a few truly understood what he had done. He had crossed the stars not to find love, but to give it. One night, as they walked through the halls of the newly rebuilt academy, Soraya stopped. She turned to Jared. Her voice was steady. I once thought love was a weakness. That letting someone close would make me soft. Jared waited. But I was wrong. Love is what made me stand again. And you gave it, even when I tried to push you away. She reached into her robe and took out a new ring made of both Larethian crystal and earth steel. She slid it onto his finger. This time, she said, let this be a ring not for duty, but for choice. Jared smiled and placed a ring of his own on her finger, made from the piece of metal he carried through the trial. And mine, he said, is for every moment I had the chance to leave and chose to stay. They kissed, not for the first time, but for the first time without fear. The stars above them blinked like silent watchers. They had witnessed many unions, but none like this. A human and an alien, two outcasts, two warriors in their own way. Bound not by tradition, but by something far stronger, a new kind of love, and neither of them ever regretted saying yes.